Good afternoon. My name is Johannes Oosthuizen and I'm a police officer in the UK based in the southwest of England in the county of Dorset, currently completing a doctorate with the University of Portsmouth, focusing on collaboration between law enforcement agencies and the private sector around issues of cybersecurity. I will be speaking briefly this afternoon about how austerity measures are affecting the police in England and Wales, and the background to the creation and termination of the Business Partnering for Police programme, or BPP as I will refer to it, in 2012, particularly the crucial influence of the newly elected Police and Crime Commissioners on that programme. I want to highlight the shifting emphasis within the UK to cybersecurity partnerships and the development of the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Partnership, or CISP as I'll refer to it, which began in March 2013. Finally, I'll make reference to Infraguard, the American cybersecurity partnership run by the FBI, as a model of practice. The relationship between policing and the private sector in the United Kingdom has been discussed in many books, journals and reports over the past 20 years, and various authors have detailed the steady growth of certain sectors such as the British security industry in this period. In 2004, there were over 600,000 people working in the private security industry in the UK, and an estimated annual turnover of manned security guarding, for example, of £1.6 billion. By 2010, that turnover stood at £3.3 billion, and predicted an annual growth of between 2 to 4% until 2015, a huge increase on the estimated £84 million turnover reported in 1993. This burgeoning industry and its prolific growth has continued at a time of severe financial austerity for the 43 police forces in England and Wales, all of whom will see their police budgets cut by over 20% by 2015, and potentially lose almost 16,200 police officers nationally over the same period. Even with the introduction of police community support officers in 2008, grave concerns remain about the resilience of police forces in England and Wales to be able to absorb public sector cuts. The London riots of August 2011, which resulted in 5 deaths, 3,100 arrests, £100 million worth of damage, and the deployment of 16,000 police officers on the streets of London for over a week, were a stark reminder that maintaining police resilience is a crucial form of insurance against the unpredictability of the future. An important and recent development in England and Wales were the plans to continue to modernise the police service by inviting private firms to bid for over £1.5 billion worth of services to take on some roles currently performed by the police, such as investigating crimes, patrolling neighbourhoods, or even detaining suspects. Led by the West Midlands and Surrey Police, and including every police authority in England and Wales bar one on the procurement notice, a 26-page contract was sent to potential bidders such as G4S, and a bidding conference was arranged for the 14th of March 2012, where bidding organisations could register for this procurement. The Home Office, who published the tender on the official journal of the European Union in January 2012, and were hoping to award a contract in the spring of 2013, supported the plans. Additional support for the programme came from a large number of senior British police officers who insisted that police forces needed to modernise in order to allow the private sector to provide staff and carry out routine and repetitive tasks at cheaper rates, thereby allowing police forces to cope with the cuts and protect the public. According to the government, the Business Partnering for Police programme, BPP, was not about traditional outsourcing, but about building a new strategic relationship between the police and the private sector. By harnessing private sector innovation, specialist skills and economies of scale, forces would be able to transform the way they deliver services and improve outcomes for the public. So in May 2012, 6 groups of companies were announced as part of the shortlist for the BPP, and included companies such as British Telecommunications, Reliance Secure Task Management, G4S Care and Justice Services, and Kellogg Brown and Root and IBM United Kingdom. The public support for BPP also came from a number of high-profile areas, namely Nick Herbert, the then Minister of State at the Home Office with the responsibility for policing, and the Ministry of Justice. Also from the Association of Chief Police Officers and the previous Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Ian Blair. However, there were warning signs that a bumpy ride for the BPP contract may lie ahead. Some of those bumps were coming from public statements made by prospective Police and Crime Commissioners, a new role introduced by the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act of 2011 that ushered in a fundamental change in British police governance. 8 months before the elections, the former Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott, who was standing for the Police and Crime Commissioner post in Humberside, made one of the first public statements. He launched a campaign to keep the police public, arguing that the radical proposal to extend the role of private security companies in policing needed to be nipped in the bud. On the 22nd of November 2012, the newly elected Labour Police and Crime Commissioner for West Midlands Police, Bob Jones, scrapped the force's plans for business partnering on his first day in office, and just 7 months later, Surrey Police announced that plans to privatise parts of their force had been halted after the security firm G4S failed to get enough staff for the London 2012 Olympics. In effect, the BPP programme had come to a grinding halt and has not moved an inch since. What now seems likely is that individual police and crime commissioners, in consultation with their police chiefs, could develop bespoke outsourcing contracts that will reduce operating costs and retain as many police officers on the front line as possible. This will almost certainly involve a redefinition of what frontline policing is for each police force, leading to a number of functions, as suggested by the BPP, being adopted and put to use. A recent example of this can be seen in the rural police force where I work. Dorset Police have contracted a private security firm under a 4-month trial requiring the guarding of scenes of major crimes, such as murder and serious assault, to prevent taking officers away from the front line of policing. The decision to outsource the role to Securitas Limited has the potential to release between 2,600 and 3,600 police hours to frontline services every year. Even though the security firm G4S admitted the fallout from its bungled 2012 Olympics contract cost them £88 million, their bosses continued to hope that they could put the episode behind them and win big government contracts which make up around 50% of the company's UK sales, which are worth about £700 million a year. This confidence seems to be well placed, as G4S is presently one of the favourites among the 30 large organisations which have expressed interest in bidding for about £450 million worth of contracts to supervise thousands of offenders in the probation services. Under plans to reform the probation service, some 225,000 low and medium risk offenders will in future be supervised by private and voluntary organisations on a payment by results basis. It's anticipated that large companies such as G4S and Serco will win the lion's share of contracts to run probation services, and under the British government's plans, private firms, charities and voluntary organisations will be given the task of rehabilitating the offenders and will be paid according to their success. There has been now, in my view, a shift away from the national programs such as the BPP to collaborative partnerships on cybersecurity, and this change in focus is driven by the current threat that cybercrime poses globally. Estimates are that in 2012, about $110 billion was lost worldwide to cybercrime, and that while the number of online adults who have experienced cybercrime has decreased, the average cost per victim has risen by 50%. The early years of cybercrime were typically associated with dark online practices in Eastern Europe when underground hacking economy thrived. But in recent times, it is China that is routinely accused of sourcing most of the world's cyber attacks. Although evidence suggests China is indeed the world's worst offender in harboring cyber criminals, maybe between 100 and 200 different groups, China is far from the only nation involved in sourcing hackers and launching state-sponsored attacks. For example, the FBI has listed South Africa as the 6th most active country where cybercrime takes place, and informal consensus within the private sector has seen South Africa ranked 3rd behind Russia and China. It is likely that within the next 2 to 3 years, the proceeds from global cybercrime will outweigh those from all other forms of white-collar crime combined due to its exponential growth, and that it's not expected to decline. So recent research has indicated that 4 in 5 of the UK's largest quoted companies are unprepared for cyber attacks. The widely reported threats to systems within finance and banking are an easy reminder of the UK's vulnerability, and a key priority of the Bank of England and other financial regulators. Even companies expected to outsmart cyber criminals are not immune. Just a few weeks ago, software company Adobe admitted that its system had been hacked and that data from nearly 3 million customers had been stolen. The UK has clearly not escaped the threat of cybercrime and in some instances has become a prime target. A recent National Audit Office reportedly put the cost of cybercrime in the UK as ranging from 18 to 27 billion pounds per year, Alarmingly, in October 2013, one of the world's most sophisticated gangs, known as Shylock, after the software it uses to infect the computers with, was found to be focusing nearly all its energy on British banks and their customers, with 80% of the banks targeted by the gang being British. In order to deal with this threat, Francis Moore, the Minister for the Cabinet Office, launched a new government and industry partnership in March 2013 in order to start and share information and intelligence on cyber security threats. A national cyber security program, backed up by £650 million of government investment over 4 years to help meet the objectives of the strategy, has been put in place and is called the Cyber Security Information Sharing Partnership, or CISP. A pilot scheme was launched to test the feasibility of sharing information and intelligence between government and industry on cyber threats and mitigations. The pilot involved 80 companies, which has now been expanded to over 160, from across 5 sectors of business, including defense, pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, finance and energy, and an interim capability was launched at the end of January 2013 to enable the signing up of industry partners to begin user testing the environment and the development of further functionality, building towards full operating capacity for March 2013. The partnership includes the introduction of a secure virtual collaboration environment where government and industry partners can exchange information on threats and vulnerabilities in real time. CISP will be complemented by a fusion cell that will be supported on the government side by the Security Service, GCHQ, the National Crime Agency, and by industry analysts from a variety of sectors. They will work together to produce an enhanced picture of cyber threats facing the UK for the benefit of all partners. Now, CISP is certainly not a unique private sector collaborative project. In fact, an almost identical program has been operating in the USA since 1996 called InfraGard, and this comparison and investigation of separate models is what my current doctoral research is focusing on. The InfraGard program began in 1996 as a collaborative effort between private sector cyber professionals and the FBI field office in Cleveland, Ohio. The FBI later expanded the program to every FBI field office in the country, and it is currently comprised of 85 separate InfraGard member alliances that represent over 50,000 FBI-vetted InfraGard subject matter experts, and has a dual-focus value proposition. It provides its members with unmatched opportunities to promote the physical and cybersecurity of their organizations through access to a trusted national network of subject matter experts from the public and private sectors, and it offers government stakeholders across local, state and federal levels with unmatched access to the expertise and experience of critical infrastructure and key resource owners and operators. Now, there are some valuable lessons to be learned from the US approach, the road they traveled to develop InfraGard, and the role of law enforcement agencies in collaborating with the private sector around matters of cybersecurity. Importantly, there are also a number of hurdles in the collaborative partnership that need to be crossed in order to make the partnerships as effective as they can be. Probably the biggest challenge for cybercrime fighting partnerships has been the level and quality of information sharing that needs to occur in order for any collaboration between law enforcement agencies and the private sector to be effective. It comes as no surprise, therefore, that CISP has already been accused of failing to support small to medium-sized businesses as a result of the ongoing mistrust of their business security and a new wariness of government agencies, thereby hampering information sharing efforts. Like their American counterparts, and in order to make CISP more relevant to a wider audience, the UK government will need to create an anonymised way to share data, and this will be one of the challenges for the future. No one is in doubt that global cybercrime is here to stay, and in many instances the private sector and law enforcement agencies have been left behind or are playing catch-up with the sophisticated approach being adopted by organised crime, cybercrime gangs. Collaboration and information sharing between the private sector and law enforcement agencies are the key to succeeding in defeating the global threat of cybercrime, and the sooner the details and difficulties of those crucial relationships are resolved, the safer our world and our money will be. Thank you very much.